Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Inside the OC podcast. My name is Matt Canizaro, and we're glad to be back for another day talking about the USBC Open Championships. And today we'll expand that a little bit, talk about Team USA, some PBA competition as well. And before we get going here, let me introduce my co-host for today's show. It is none other than Mr. 300, Daniel Ferris. How are you today, sir?
I'm doing well, Matt. Thank you for that very amazing introduction.
All right. Well, typically, as things have been kind of wacky over the last couple of months, we've kind of talked about things that happened in the past and things we're hopeful for in the future. But now, with bowling centers being open again, tournaments running, we get to talk a little bit about what happened this past weekend and what's coming up on the lanes in just a few days. And we'll just talk for a minute about last night. You finally got a chance to get out there. You had your best cow jersey on, and you got the job done. And had some fun as well. Tell us about that real quick before we welcome in today's guests.
I did. The executive strike and spare, where the PWBA was at last year, where Dasha shot 300 in the title match against Liz. They hosted a little 4-game sweeper, cut to the top 8, and then a single-game elimination bracket after the cut. And it was a handicap event, so we had a lot of bowlers there that weren't scratch bowlers, players from all over the average range, which was nice to see. It was nice to be in as full as the bowling center could be under the social distancing rules, but just over 80 people showed up. And game 2, I was lucky enough to snap off 300. So 300 number 59 and led qualifying. And then in the first round of the bracket, I ran up against Brett Shepard, a very talented player from our area. A lot of people in this area of the country know Brett. He had front 8 against me, and I had 3 10-pins on the left lane in the first 7 frames. So what are you going to do? But it was I made some money in the bracket and shot 300, added that to my list of career achievements. That was always cool. I was really nervous. Like, I haven't been that nervous on front 11 in a long time. So it was cool to feel that again and feel that emotion and those butterflies and that, the Eminem verse, knees weak, arms heavy, bobbing on a sweater, mom spaghetti type stuff.
Well, I'm glad you cleaned off your sweater before today's broadcast. And, that's usually how I feel before we go live. And here we are. It's about showtime. We'll talk about somebody who was able to finish it off and get the job done this past weekend. Didn't just bowl one good game and call it a day. But without further ado, our 4-time Team USA member and our reigning USBC Masters champion, Jakob Butturff. How are you today, sir?
It's good to be on, guys. Pleasure to get back out on the lanes for tournament play this past weekend out in St. Louis. And hopefully down the road, looking forward to more tournaments.
All right. Well, of course, we know it's been wacky lately, and anybody who follows you on social media and kind of keeps tabs on what you're up to, you're probably one of the guys who bowls more events than anybody every weekend, even during the week. Sometimes you seem to be somewhere finding things to do. What has it been like over the last couple of months not being able to get to these events?
It's definitely been rough. For people who know me, I love to go out there and compete. I love to bowl, and I even love to practice. So not even being able to go out there and bowl on the lanes, it's been a rough stretch. But obviously, with everything, all the scare going on, everybody wants to go out there and be safe. So being safe is possibly the best thing you can ask for. So with that being said, now that bowling alleys are finally getting back to being open, it's going to be a great environment, hopefully within the next couple months.
All right. Now, typically, again, you bowl more than most. You're always somewhere, and often not in your hometown, but somewhere, as you mentioned, St. Louis. How do you decide where you're going to go and when? And you probably bowl, 50 weekends a year, I would think. And you kind of come up with a calendar and just go through and see what's coming up and plan all these trips. And also, you drive sometimes, you fly sometimes. So there's a lot that goes into what you do. I imagine it's been pretty interesting, to say the least, to be home the last couple of months.
It definitely does, because everybody knows me. I travel pretty much every weekend. If it's not PBA, it's basically another tournament. And with PBA going on right now, it's, we have the 2 special events coming up, but they're planning to reschedule the rest of the World Series. 3 titles at stakes there, and then obviously the USBC Masters, the PBA playoffs, and the PBA League to follow that. So right as of right now, I'm just trying to follow everything on the potential schedule for bowling, and until the PBA comes up with more events, then gonna try to find as much as I can to bowl.
All right, so you made the choice. You went out to St. Louis and you came away with a victory. How did you stay sharp and ready for this to happen over the last couple months? And were you outside in the yard throwing balls? Did you have a connection? Do you know somebody? Or are you just that good?
So I was out throwing a couple bowling balls in the yard a couple of times, and then went out to California for a couple of just a couple of practice sessions. Visited some really good friends. Jordan Asberg, who's my coach, his daughter actually just did an acceptance to college for next year, and their home center was open, and figured I'd get up and throw a couple bowling balls, and needless to say, the muscles were stiff. But when I ended up coming back home, one of our home pro shop centers at Glenfair Lanes in Glendale, someone who actually helps run the center is someone who I've known for a majority of my life. Jason Lucero and the Lucero family, they run the center, but Jason actually grew up in Vegas as well. And that's how I kind of like came on. Once I started to come onto the scene for like any kind of youth bowling, Jason was just kind of like aging out, he was kind of building up and taking it a step further in his life. But down the road, eventually, now he's out here in Arizona as well, and came back home, practiced at his center for a couple of days, and was able to come bowl my first tournament out in Texas last weekend, Scott Dodson Center, Hilltop Lanes, and Waxahachie. Unfortunately, bowling wasn't great out there, but it was great to get back into that tournament field. You know what I mean?
Yeah, one thing that Matt mentioned earlier was, and we've talked about this with a lot of our guests on the show who travel, whether for work or for bowling as their primary job, is that a lot of people have spent more time at home now than they might have ever had, or at least have in the last couple of years. I remember you were talking about, and this was a very public thing that you put out on social media and stuff last year. There was a stretch between like July, August, and September where you were home for like, what was it, 8 days in a total, like 2.5 months?
Yeah, it was a period where I didn't see my bed for more than a couple days for a couple months stretch.
So how different is it, or has it been, to be home when you go through stretches where you're hardly at home at all?
You know, most people will speak differently when it comes to situations like this. Obviously, if you're going out there competing, it's great to get back home and just relax as much as you can. For me personally, like I could speak highly of that, but at the same time, when you're someone who's constantly on the road competing and just wanting to go out there and win, it's definitely a different feel. And it has been great to stay home for the last couple of months, but you know, when there's not just nothing to do, but like including bowling, but like you can't do anything, then you're just kind of sitting in a phone booth, basically just going insane.
So some of the people that I've talked to on my show on Wednesdays, splitting boards, I've asked them what they've done during this break. Some of them, they've all said they've played some video games. Some people have worked out. Some people spent more time outside. Without being able to bowl or travel, what have you spent your free time doing?
I've been kind of in that same boat. Video games has been something I've always done growing up. Trying to get back into that workout scene. I kind of been, I would say the word slacking off in the past. Trying to but at the same time now I'm trying to, knowing what's been happening. It's been a stretch to where I know I have to get back into shape, being out there competing. Also, I also did something that most people probably say they can't do, but it's like I signed up to be an Uber Eats driver for the area.
All right. Well, as we get rolling here, we're going to talk about, again, you mentioned the workout situation. We'll talk about some of the injuries you've endured over the last couple of years. And then as we get ready to talk about the path you've traveled to get where you are right now, let's talk about travel in general. You mentioned being in California, being in St. Louis. What has the actual travel part been like here in this kind of right now in the middle of this COVID-19, not even post-COVID-19, but as things get going, how different was it? With the whole airport situation and the airplanes and how much more time did it take to do what you needed to do?
It's definitely been an interesting situation, needless to say. When you're going out, like you can't get on the airplane now without having to wear a mask. And, it's a little bit of a struggle for most people, like say that have anxiety. When you're sitting on a plane for 3.5, 4 hours, it's like, how can you sit there and you have to pull down a mask every time that, you have to take a deep breath. And it's pretty difficult for most people to do that for a 3.5 hour flight. And I definitely noticed it when I was flying back home yesterday. Saw a lady looking over, and she constantly had to pull down her mask to just even take a breath. So definitely a very scary situation. And to top it off now, it's like a lot more people are scared to travel with all the riots going on now too.
So definitely a very wacky time. And, you've had a chance to travel quite a bit over the last couple of years with Team USA and see some places that you hadn't seen. But let's dial it back to the beginning. You mentioned being in Arizona right now and having grown up in the Las Vegas area as well. So kind of a standout in the JBTs in the Southwest there, but not really on the national scene. I don't know that many folks outside of the area knew who Jakob Butturff was. And then all of a sudden, it was like a drag race, 0 to 60, 0 to 300 in just a couple of seconds for you, really. And in our world, your breakout performance came in 2016. You'd already bowled in the Open Championships a couple of times at that point and had a couple decent years, but really nothing on the radar. And then all of a sudden, 2016, here comes this left-hander. And for the folks who don't know you and your style, it can often be described as unique, and we'll have you describe it here in just a minute as well. But 2016, you came out to the Open Championships in Reno, and you made a run at the all events title. Again, it's the first time that I'd ever seen you compete. I even had to ask some of your friends how to say your name before we did our Facebook Live as you were making the run, and you got close and probably learned a lot that day, and as we learned a lot about you. But I guess talk about that breakout, because really that was the year. 2016 is when it happened. You went on to win 9 PBA regional titles, and then you've been a front page face ever since. But I guess describe for the folks at home kind of the unique style, the upbringing, and then when it all clicked for you to get to that level.
Well, actually, Matt, it actually all started, I'd probably say right in the middle of 2015. I got my PBA card in 2015 in July, and basically as that moment clicked, I just kind of just wanted to go out there, compete, and travel as much as I possibly can, especially starting at 21 years old. It all started in August with the New Mexico Open, who ran by Steve Mackey, and that I would say kind of broke through to start my career, winning that for my first big win of any big tournament I bowled. And you have to knock off the big names to win those titles. I could say that I beat someone who's a 2-time U.S. Open champion, and Francois Lavoie, and that was kind of like the kickoff to my career. And I ended up going into the World Series as a rookie, and ended up making my first TV show on the PBA Viper Championship, the all lefty show. And it was just great to kind of kick off that, especially knowing that now you look back at it 5 years ago, I was in the same rookie class as Jesper Svensson and Anthony Simonson. So that was definitely something that kind of kick off my career. It was definitely a big accomplishment. But then in 2016, now I'm kind of been on the scene just for a quick radar, and now I'm wanting to go out there and compete as much as I can. So bowling is pretty much every regional stop I possibly can throughout the year. Some tour events came up, wanted to bowl those. There's a picture. That is one group that I was actually just looking over some memories. We go to nationals every single year right around this time, and that was definitely a memory that can top a lot. And bowling the Open Championships with a crew that, a handful of those guys I bowled collegiately with in college, Ben Canfield, Russ Oviatt, a handful, Coach Jordan's there, and a bunch of people I love to call my close friends are in that group as well. So just that environment, and a guy who's actually made a couple of TV shows is in that group as well, Mike Lichstein. And that is a name that goes back a lot in the PBA with his father, Larry, as well. So 2016, I would say it was the year that kicked off pretty much everything, winning 9 regional titles, building a lot of friendships out there. I ended up winning my first PBA tour event as well out in Lubbock, Texas. That year, my second career title. This, I would say, was a memorable title because in 33 games I had 2 open frames, and I went 182 frames clean. The last 182 frames.
Now, with that level of success, of course, there had to be some pretty significant coaching role models in your life to help you progress the way that you did. You mentioned college bowling. You took maybe a little different path than some of the guys you compete against week in and week out as far as junior gold and junior team USA and college bowling, but you had the experience and did well and clearly benefited from it. But what did it take, and who was there to help you get to the next level so quickly?
So growing up, I really didn't have like a specific coach, because most coaches are probably looking at me at such a young age being like, how can you really teach the kid who is throwing the ball with a broken wrist, is what they would say. So, but there was a couple of guys that helped me growing up. Obviously the support from my parents growing up was more than I can ever ask for. A name by David Pierce, growing up in the Saturday morning leagues. He was always there trying to like help me add to my game pretty much. And then two guys growing up that kind of helped me get along into the scene was obviously Coach Jordan Nasberg over at Arizona State. Jeff Hemer, who runs the JBT circuit on the southwest part of the country. He's done a lot for us. Even into the big scenes, tour roommates, Josh Blanchard and Andres Gomez, like all those guys, I would consider the biggest part of my lives so far when it came to being able to go out there, like out on the tour, the full-time circuit. Obviously there's a lot of people in my life that I've roomed with, I've, been close friends with, and just all that support. I mean, that's kind of what grows me into going out there and competing against some of the best names out there.
Now, as you mentioned, coaches might look at your bowling style and think, this guy has no clue. He's not going anywhere. Can you describe your style to the folks at home, and then how you've made that work for you to be so successful? Because, again, incredibly unique, but clearly effective as well.
So, I mean, I obviously have a really, as a slang term that people would say, sick wrist. So basically I found out I'm double jointing my wrist and my thumb. So I just kind of relax the ball back on my wrist and put my thumb in it and just what they call speed racer to the line. A couple of guys on tour, Andrew Anderson came up with this one. We call it waddle run crank smash is what they call it. And it's kind of stuck with a handful of those guys saying that. And obviously it's effective, and I do pretty much everything I possibly can to make sure that my wrist stays healthy. I don't even know how you can make a wrist stay healthy like that, but honestly, like just making sure my whole upper body stays healthy. I know I'm always been good with my legs. Obviously, as you see me running to the line, or as people would say, waddling to the line.
Well, but before we show any video of you, I'd like to show video of someone impersonating you.
Oh, boy. Oh, this is a video that goes... Oh, man. So close. And he does the walk-off and the waddle back even perfectly as well.
So Marshall's got it down.
Oh, he definitely does, and Marshall knows how to impersonate a lot of people. We every time we bowl a big event or make match play, we're bowling practice, and it started in Jonesboro last year. A fan was like, impersonate Jacob or something like that, and ever since then, every single time Marshall's bowling match play, and if I'm watching or if we both make cut, he always throws one shot just like me.
Well, based on the number of people watching right now and all the great comments and questions in our chat, you've definitely had quite an impact on the PBA Tour and the world of bowling. and we look forward to hearing kind of some of your thoughts on getting to where you are. We'll turn it back now to the 2016 Open Championships, of course. This is inside the OC. Tell us about that day. You were 22 years old, on the big stage there with some great players, the newcomer of the group, so to speak. Can you describe just that day? Did you understand the prestige, the magnitude of what you're on the verge of doing in such a big event?
So I can honestly tell you those 2 days in a nutshell, like it's the back of my hand. Obviously, it was in Reno, bowling with a handful of guys, Mike Lichstein, Brian Macon, Robbie Patterson, Matt Zweig, like a handful of the guys I've grown close with, Russ Ovia, Ben Canfield. Like I said, I could name pretty much my whole team that was there. Our team, I still have the picture in my room. That was a big part of it. And game 2 of team event, I have front 10, and I remember exactly what happened. I ended up going through the face. I left a 247, and I threw a shot, and I've totally spaced that. I put an extra 2 pieces of tape in my thumb hole before we started, and I attempted to shoot the spare, and it got hung up on my thumb. And if it was in any other bowling center, it would have gone straight through the roof. And Jordan Nasper, coach, said it was the highest he's ever seen a bowling ball go. And it got straight up hung up on my thumb. But I mean, 284 game 2, as what we call a good bracket game. So I'll happily take that.
That's a great mystery score game as well.
Absolutely. So I ended up shooting 209 the last game. So I'm already going in. I believe I shot 716, 717 the first set, and going in the next morning in doubles and singles. Now we're just trying to figure out what we can do for all of us to succeed, all of us to have a good time going into the early morning of doubles and singles. And I ended up putting up a really big set I ended up putting up a big set in doubles. I believe it was like 723, if I remember correctly.
721.
Oh, we got the expert going in on the. I'm
the numbers guy. I got to keep you straight.
I'm pretty close. I mean, I could at least say I'm within 10 or 12.
Oh, you were within 5. Yeah, you got it.
Because I remember exactly what I shot. I believe, if I remember correctly, I shot 684 the single set, and I needed 682 to at least tie Robert Burris, who had the lead at the time.
Okay, now you ended up finishing 3rd that year. A great start to a great career, of course, and a nice run. Looking back on that, knowing that you were arguably that close to a potential Eagle, now that you've had a few more years to understand the prestige and the sport and the game a little bit more, talk about that finish. And of course, you've been close a couple times since, but probably nothing like the first time.
Oh, definitely not. If I have the video saved on my phone of my very last shot to take over the lead at Nationals, I needed 256 the last game, and I had 4 baggers, 9 spare, 4 baggers. So even if I get the first hit, I've pretty much declared it. And that nemesis pin is what people call it nowadays, the 7 pin. Having to shoot one of those for a really nerve-wracking situation, then, that was the scary part, and ended up making it. I didn't think anything of it. I thought I needed a strike at that moment. I thought I needed a strike to tie. So when I got the strike, everybody was going insane. I thought it was to tie. It was actually to win or to take the lead at Nationals. So the emotions were definitely flying once I figured it out, and having the whole crew as soon as I throw the shot going on into the lanes, it was definitely overwhelming, and it was awesome. Just seeing all your close friends being right there at that exact moment.
You ended up 3rd that year. I'm sure you were watching scores to an extent. What was it like when you found out that you'd been topped, and eventually it was 9 pin difference between the winner that year and yourself in 3rd?
So that day, I remember exactly who took over the lead. It was Brandon Novak. Mm-hmm. And that morning, actually, Chad Roberts had a chance to take over the lead as well. So Chad ended up needing the first hit. I think he missed. And then the very next squad, Brandon Novak needs the back 8 to he needs the back eight to take over the lead. And from asking his teammates, he pretty much flushed every single shot. So hats off to Brandon for doing that. Obviously, that's, a no fear moment. And I know I've seen Brandon bowl a handful of times. I bowled in trios with him. I know he's capable of striking when he has it.
Well, and that's funny because I guess there must have been something in the water that year in Reno, because you've got, Chad in the middle right there with you guys, who's pretty close to textbook. You would teach that style.
Absolutely.
And then you've got Brandon Novak up top, and you're right there. And I don't know that anybody would teach, what you do or Brandon's arm swing to anybody. But the great thing about you and Brandon is the fact that while watching you might go, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
At the bottom of your swing and your release, you guys get it off your hand the exact same way every time. The ball roll is so strong, and you do it so well, and you repeat it. That's really all that matters.
Exactly. I know a lot of people say that Brandon's nickname is Figure Eight.
Yeah.
I could definitely see it, but again, it's a handful of styles out there. Thomas Smallwood's got a unique style. Obviously, he's the full roller. Like everybody thinks he's a carbon copy of me, but with a righty version. But at the same time, Thomas Smallwood's a he's a two-time major champion. I believe 3 or 4 national titles. So, it doesn't matter how you get there to the line. It's a matter of how you can execute.
Well, and you just did Nick Hoagland a huge favor. He's our lane maintenance pattern developer. And the goal, of course, at the Open Championships is to give us patterns that can be attacked from either side of the lane, any different style. You can get to the pocket and bowl some scores. And lefty, righty, traditional, non-traditional, that's perfect. And again, success for Mr. Hoagland there. And for Jakob, came back the very next year, proving that it wasn't just a one-time thing and this new kid coming out, but you made a run again in 2017 in a familiar venue, a little more comfortable in the Las Vegas area, gave it a go, another top 5 performance. And now, as pointed out in our chat by Mr. Nashberg, you've gone on to become our 5-year average leader, averaging nearly 229 over the last 5 years. Talk about following up that 2016 season and Open Championships with another run in 2017. And really, that's really just the beginning of a huge snowball of a career.
So 2017, obviously, now I'm in my backyard. I'm in Las Vegas at the South Point Plaza. Already had up to this point, I've had quite a bit of success building up, into the Open Championships. So, I'm back in a different venue, but the same environment with the same people that surround me, with the Open Championships. And now I'm in an even more uncomfortable environment. And I still remember to this day, if I remember, doubles was my low set that year. And Brian Macon, if I would have shot what he shot equally, we would have had a doubles eagle. Brian ended up being the high side between us that year at like 694, and I shot a mere 632, if I remember correctly. So, Brian, growing up to be one of my really close friends as well, lives out in the Akron area. He loves to go out there and compete in tournaments as well. Really smart individual, and he basically does everything he can to make sure that you're in that moment no matter what. You throw one bad shot, he's always there to boost you up. And he definitely did that during doubles, and did it even during singles, even though I let him down. I ended up shooting 769 in singles, and I remember Brad Angelo winning that year by a bajillion for all events, and ended up finishing top 5 that year, another top 5 in the books for Open Championships.
One of the questions from one of our viewers on our YouTube channel, this show also available on Facebook, on the OC page, the USBC page, and on Bowl TV, Emily LaPlante, and this kind of goes back to what you were talking about with, you were in your backyard in 2017 in Las Vegas, you were in a very comfortable venue. Emily asks, maybe not so much I'm looking at the first part of that, but as far as which bowling center do you bowl the best in, with your comfortability in Las Vegas and South Point and the success you found there, does that venue creep into your list of your bowling centers you bowl the best at, or where would you fit that in there?
I think the South Point Plaza is definitely my top 5, and mirror probably top 3, because I have a title in that building. I've had a lot of success in that building, and I ended up, before all of COVID happened, I ended up bowling very successful in this past World Series, made all the animal pattern cuts, made a top 16 in other World Championships. So it's just an environment I feel comfortable in, not so much also because I bowl well there, but I have my family surrounding me, a lot of close friends growing up. So it just makes me feel comfortable and makes me feel a lot more successful when I'm bowling.
Okay.
Now we're headed back to the National Bowling Stadium in Reno here in 2020, and then South Point in Las Vegas in 2021. Again, these are the two venues we're talking the most about here. What would it mean to have another great year and to get the job done and finally take home an eagle?
Oh, I mean, a lot of people want to accomplish so much when they're bowling, and one thing I definitely want to kind of check off now is an eagle of any sort. Finished top 5 a couple of years now, been really close in doubles, been close in singles. I'm just ready to cross off that eagle list.
Okay, now here's a 2-part question for you. And a lot of folks are going to give you a hard time for being left-handed, saying, lefties have the world, they have the advantage, etc. And then at the same time, urethane has really been your go-to over your career. So if urethane doesn't make a resurgence here over the last few years, are we still having this conversation right now?
Oh, absolutely not. I mean, if I'm being completely 100% honest, obviously most of my success has been with urethane, but at the same time, I've learned to put urethane into my hands, and if you're being successful with something, why change it? And just because I've been successful with urethane doesn't make me any different of a bowler. I just want to go out there and win. And I've won out there with, reactive bowling balls as well. I mean, I have 22 regional titles, and I have 6 of them with reactive bowling balls. So, obviously that states a lot from what people are seeing me used to throwing most of the time. And I've competed even bowling on TV with reactive. So I'm not afraid to throw reactive, but at the same time, I want to go out there and win and compete, and give me what gives me the advantage.
We know that you're. Oh, a question about the urethane, real quick. We know that urethane allows players to control the lane, control the pocket better. What is it about urethane that matches up so much better for you compared to a reactive resin ball? What is the major advantage that you have with that piece of equipment that a lot of other players are still seeking to find?
Well, like you said, Daniel, I mean, urethane basically matches up. It makes you control the pocket a lot easier. A lot of people who obviously can play straighter, like on, those shorter patterns, even medium type of patterns, they can play straighter and, control the pocket a lot easier into the head pin. For me personally, I've been kind of in that same boat, but I mean, if it allows me to play straighter, most people know me. I have a pretty high rev rate for a lefty and not a ton of ball speed. So I want to give me what allows me to play straighter, maybe even curve a little bit more. And urethane has been that best option for me.
Well, of course, taking advantage of the tools at your disposal, and that's how you get to become a great champion. And you definitely have the versatility as well. And that brings up your World Cup title in Mexico, a week where maybe the urethane wasn't so much in play, and you had some struggles during that event. You're able to go into the arsenal and pull out some different equipment, some different tricks, and get just enough to get where you needed to be. And then things fell into place with your A game as we got onto the TV show. And talk about that event and that moment where you were the mature player and had, of course, the backing of Team USA head coach Rod Ross to be able to talk through those decisions and go with something that's maybe much less comfortable at that moment to find success.
Well, Rod's also been another big help ever since I've been on Team USA. Obviously, he's one of those guys that wants to learn my game. He wants to add as much as he can to it, and it definitely paid off that week. A big part of me was not one of those guys that were very comfortable playing that deep in that part of the lane. And in Mexico, when you find out that their house shot is basically 25 feet and it has no oil on it, you got to figure out what you possibly can do. Obviously, we didn't bowl on their house shot. We bowled on something pretty dry. I believe it was 41 feet, and it played extremely dry. You had a lot of, high rev guys. I remember seeing the rev rate from Marco Moretti from Costa Rica, and I'm like, wow, this guy really can cram on a bowling ball. And so, he's playing 6 arrows start, and a lot of guys are just trying to hook the lane. So, I got to figure out what I could do to do the same thing on the left side. So urethane wasn't looking good the first day. Rod's like, what can we do to add to your arsenal? And I was like, I got reactive balls. And he's like, all right, let's try this one. Ended up going to Columbia 300 spoiler and playing, that fallback shot I've done very rarely in my life because I've never really had to so much. Ended up finishing the first day with 230 to get me to about, I'd say, like the 14th, 15th spot. Now I'm trying to figure out how I could do that pretty much the rest of the week. And it paid off right about to the point we got into match play. And the last 2 games was definitely going into the last 2 games was a struggle. And I ended up bowling Mats Maggie from Belgium the game right before position round and shot 250 playing that same line. And I'm just like, I have to figure out what to do, like to repeat this, because now I'm 4th going into the show. So I'm literally the show number. I ended up bowling the same pair against Mats again. And I'm like, wow, I just got to do the same thing basically. And that ended up paying off. The show was Ildemar Ruiz from Venezuela, Oscar Rodriguez from Colombia, and Ahmad Muaz from Malaysia, along with myself. So a couple of guys that have been out there being able to compete. Obviously, the average height of that show was 5'3", but I mean, it was good. And being able to compete, like to be back in that environment.
All right, here's a look at that event. There's Coach Rod Ross in the background. And we'll talk, kind of set it up a little bit too. After so much success early in your career, it wasn't all rainbows for you. And this is coming just a few days off of a broken-hearted U.S. Open, where you led by hundreds and hundreds of pins and fell short in the title match. So you came in with some disappointment. It was something to prove. Back on TV here, first appearance since that huge lead turned into a runner-up finish. But really a true test in your career to be able to be mentally tough and bounce back. And as you're bowling this TV show, how much of that U.S. Open performance was in the back of your mind, and or how much was in your heart to get past it and hoist that World Cup?
It definitely sat there for a little bit, especially since it was about 2 days. It was 2 days prior to flying out to Mexico when we finished up the U.S. Open. I'm literally flying home from Syracuse back to Arizona, and in that time span, I landed about 6 o'clock at night. I wanted to make a trip to visit everybody back at Lee because Thursday night is league night for Jacob. And as soon as I walk in the building, I just get all the support. We have a full men's league, 40 lanes at Brunswick Bolero Mesa now in Arizona, and all the support. I just got the standing ovation walking in the building. That was definitely heartwarming and got free cake out of it. And so just that support from all the family, and then having to get back on a plane the next afternoon to go out to Hermosillo, Mexico. So to be part of this, it's like I can't thank the support I get from everybody back home. Without them, I definitely wouldn't have that confidence competing out in the lanes. And when I'm home, everybody knows this about me. When I'm home, I'm just Jacob. I'm not this professional bowler. I love just going out there, making amends, and being close friends with, the people that have supported me throughout my majority of my career.
Now, going back to your social media we mentioned earlier, you're an open book out there to the world. You celebrate the victories, and you're very open with your thoughts and your emotions on the things that maybe don't go so well. We talked about that first U.S. Open loss. There was another one, of course, the following year. So some more disappointment there. And then the couple of years since, and these again are things that you talk about openly and things that you battle with a little bit, but there's been some injuries over the last couple of years. And you've admittedly maybe have not taken as good a care of yourself as you would like to as an athlete, to stay at the top of your game. There's a lot of Coca-Cola and Mountain Dew and some gummy worms and things. But those are things you're changing now. You've learned a lot, I think. Again, after having such quick success, you've also seen some of the downswing a little bit, some of the negatives and things that you want to fix and work on and get past. Tell us about some of those injuries and then seeing yourself kind of evolve on TV physically to a point where, you know what, now that you have some time, there's a pull-up bar right behind you. It's time to get back to the Jakob who can go out and handle business.
So it all started, I would say, right around 2017. Going halfway through the year, wasn't doing that successful. I ended up having a really bad injury in my ring finger, actually, and it was like right around June, and I ended up still trying to bowl, and my fingers swelled up so bad, couldn't fit my finger in the bowling ball. It was supposed to be the day that I was supposed to fly out to Junior Gold, and right after Junior Gold was when Tommy Jones and I were supposed to go bowl World Games out in Poland, and I found out the night before I was supposed to fly out to Junior Gold that I ended up chipping in one spot and breaking my index or my ring finger. So ended up being a injury that hit me a lot more emotionally because it was a last minute decision. I ended up calling Rod that night and just felt defeated, honestly, because, I feel like I'm, not just letting him down, I'm letting everybody else on Team USA down. But at the same time, they all know that I need to take care of myself and fix this. And, they got Marshall Kent to do it last minute. And so the quick turnaround, it's definitely a huge help and a huge support. Ended up being in a splint for 6 to 8 weeks. And I honestly would call that the turning moment in my life with bowling because of the fact that after that moment on, I went 6 straight tournaments not finishing lower than 4th place. Big tournaments as well. Ended up bowling New Mexico Open that year in a really good step ladder with Anthony Simonton, Steve Smith, and Vernon Peterson. And ended up making that step ladder, bowled really well there. Ended up going out there. That's when, obviously I had the successful US Open and Mexico run. So an injury setback that turned into a big mental and physical help.
Okay. Now, unfortunately, the injuries kind of came back again differently at the end of 2019 there at the US Open. After the back-to-back runner-up finishes, you're trying. You're out there. You want to give it another go and change things around and make a run for the 3rd time. And unfortunately had to withdraw from that event, which then parlayed into the Team USA trials, where literally you limped into Team USA for 2020 as they called your name to come up. As the team announcement was made, you had a serious injury as well that really slowed you down at the end of 2019 and early 2020, and no doubt has led to some of the work, and I'm sure the rest recently has been very much appreciated too.
So 2019, obviously US Open there, I ended up having an allergic reaction in my body and ended up having to go to the hospital. It's 4 o'clock in the morning. I ended up getting back to my Airbnb, having to bowl the morning squad the next morning, and still tried to attempt to bowl. I told ball reps Sean Ryan, Mike Snailbaker what happened, tried to bowl, and told them I was going to withdraw it. And, they said, I'm surprised you even attempted to bowl those 3 games. Like he says, if it was me, I wouldn't even attempt to bowl because my body just felt shut down. I was in a lot of pain, and it just kind of the pain took over. And, I ended up flying home. It was shortly after, and it was just, feeling defeated because, it's a tournament I've had a lot of success in, and I'm sitting here withdrawing from it. And it's like not really much I could, after a big clash win as well, the 2020 PBA clash. So, and then now carrying over into the Team USA trials, that injury kind of concurred throughout the week. Took a really bad step in my thigh. I didn't think anything of it. It started to hurt a lot more at day 4 of Team USA trials. Could hardly walk. Pain started reoccurring day 5. After day 5, I ended up going to I ended up going to urgent care at the hospital, and they ended up sending me to the big boys room, and they said that you sure you bowled today? Are you still bowled today? And there, I was like, yeah. He's like, if you would have kept bowling today, you might not have been able to walk for a while. And he says, because you have a minor tear in your thigh. He says, if you would have bowled a couple more games, your thigh would have completely tore. And sure enough, I'm walking up the steps. I literally call it magic. I looked, my name just didn't expect anything of it. It's day 5 of Team USA trials. Obviously, everybody's just ready to hear their name called, and hearing mine, it's like I'm on lane 30 or lane 3, and the stands over at lane 40. So limping all that way, like I was just sitting in the back, not thinking anything of it, and then hearing my name getting called, it's like trying to walk as fast as I can. AJ Johnson and Andrew Anderson had to help me onto the stage.
Now, just 2 weeks later, because team trials was the first week of January, just a couple weeks later, you made the TV show at the PBA Hall of Fame Classic at the ITRC down at USBC headquarters in Arlington. How did you bounce back from a thigh injury like that to make a TV show?
I wouldn't even necessarily use the word bounce back, Daniel. I was still in a lot of pain, and it took a lot of KT tape. It took a lot of BioFreeze. It took a lot of any possible ibuprofen I could take to make sure that I was still able to go out there and compete. And it definitely it was still painful to walk the first 2 weeks of the season in ITRC and in Shawnee. It was still painful. The pain started to go away after missing cut at a couple and Shawnee. I think that's kind of what helped, because now my leg is taking a couple of days to relax. Making the drive out to Jonesboro. I don't know, those 3, 4, 5 days that my thigh didn't have to bowl, it felt a lot better, and didn't feel any pain when I was bowling practice day in Jonesboro, and haven't felt any pain since.
Okay, now you've experienced the highs and some of the lows as well. Early in your career, you're still in your 20s, but you got the nod for Team USA in 2020, which now will be 2021 because of our current situation. So kind of new life for you, a minute to relax and reflect on that. I know how much Team USA means to you. We'll talk about some of those moments here as we wind down. But now that you have that to look forward to, you've had this time off. I know you've got the nutrition in order. You've got the workout this morning. Actually, you were up early doing the workout and some time to rest the body. Just talk about where you are mentally now as we head into what hopefully is an exciting conclusion to 2020, and then a lot to look forward to in 2021 as we see potentially a brand new Jakob Butturff out there on the lanes.
Definitely just trying to go out there and take better care of myself. I've had all the support from all the tour guys. I've asked for a lot of help from people that have helped out with the tour. Obviously, Josh Blanchard's always there. He's always looking out for me like a big brother. Basically all of the support from friends and family, trying to find any way I possibly can to make myself better. Constant wake up calls, I'm 26 years old. I shouldn't feel like I'm 45 years old with my body. So, obviously with everything kicking back up, it's like, I have to stay on top of it this time and make sure that my body's feeling good. I actually ended up buying this big water bottle and a little bit of profanity on it and writing with a Sharpie marker. But it's like that motivation to tell you that, hey, you need to wake up, you need to take care of yourself, because you had it 4 or 5 years ago. But if you continue to do the stupid things that you've been doing, you're not going to have that for another 4 or 5 years.
That's 100%, and totally respect that for sure. And you also speak often very openly about the people in your life who influence you, support you, and you want to do well for them and be well for them. You talk a lot about your mom. She's watching right now. Bridget's in the chat, and Grandpa Ken. You have the tattoo to remember and remind you about him and his influence in your life. And if you can, just talk about those folks and how important it is to do well for them and the way it feels knowing that they're there, they're watching, they're proud, and just kind of the impact and the role that they've played for you over the last or your life, technically.
So obviously, family was big for me growing up. Family events were very special to me. I always look forward to them. Obviously, growing up, my parents parted ways, but as they did, they still wanted to make sure that I still accomplished everything I wanted to do, and they always made sure that I had to do my priorities first before I can go out there and bowl like I love to do. So obviously, Dad took me to practice Friday nights, league Saturday mornings, and growing up, Mom took me to high school matches. She took me to JBTs, traveled all over the whole West Coast, and just the support growing up to lead where it is today. And without that support, without that help from them, I wouldn't be who I am today. So I love both my parents to death, and they always made sure that I was doing as successful as I can growing up. And a lot of parents out there always want the most success from their kids. So if you don't have that success, if you don't have that support, you can't go out there and compete the way you do.
One of those successes, and a very special part of 2019, of course, was the USBC Masters in Las Vegas. Surrounded by friends and family, the opportunity to capture your first major title after, again, a couple of heartbreaking upsets at the US Open. Tell us about the USBC Masters and all of it falling into place, arguably in one of the most special places to you.
So Gold Coast Bowling Center was obviously a center I grew up in Vegas. First ever time I got to experience different oil patterns as well. We bowled a very special league that led into the junior gold growing up. So we bowled on different oil patterns. That's where I learned about PBA oil patterns, and it definitely helped growing up. But that was just the start of where it was in Gold Coast. So that week in general, that was definitely the roller coaster of a lifetime. That was when I had a really bad back injury as well. So, to add to the injuries, I was rolling out of bed 5:30 in the morning, so much pain. It was unbearable amount of pain. So throwing the shot to execute the first major, finishing second, 3 majors prior to this win was definitely an emotional one. And, to do it in Vegas, beating Michael Hallman, he's one of my close friends off the lanes as well. And, doing it in the environment of Las Vegas, it was, a speechless moment.
Right now, we've certainly covered a lot of topics so far. And as we approach the hour mark here, we're going to stay in Las Vegas and 2019. We're going to shift gears to the Open Championships and some of the momentum that you had, of course, with this Masters win. Another solid OC for you. But the real story also came at the nearby Bowlers Journal Championships. And maybe something you can look back on and laugh a little bit now. Kind of an interesting story, taking some of this momentum to that event and putting up some pretty serious scores. First time through the BJ, bowling in the 820s. 827, I believe, was the number in the singles event. Still moving into second place behind AJ Rice. And at that point, the opportunity to bowl multiple times in that event, to come back, bowl singles again. You can bowl doubles with multiple partners. You're feeling pretty good, I would imagine, throwing the ball well. But after the 827, you decided you're going to bowl some more doubles, but sit out the singles portion of it. Like, hey, I just bowled 827. How can I possibly top that? Like, who goes into an event thinking, you know what, I'm going to bowl better than 827? So you skip the singles and accept that AJ is going to stay ahead of you. You go and you bowl doubles only, and you shoot 857 with a 300 game. You can laugh at it now, I think, and the money would have been spent anyway, but maybe not. Tell us about the Bowlers Journal in 2019.
Well, first off, I hope there's a handful of people watching this right now, but AJ Rice still owes me a steak dinner because of this. And, obviously AJ is another close friend off the lanes. Bowled a lot. We bowled Longview doubles pretty much every year up until this point because of all the tour conflict schedule. But, oh my goodness, that's what I'm thinking. With when you bowl 827 your first set in the Bowlers Journal, you don't expect anything more than that, if you're being completely honest. So I didn't think anything of it. At that point, I wanted my mindset to stay focused on doubles because I bowled my first doubles, and I'm like, I have 7 more doubles, and it's like, am I really gonna shoot 827 again? Apparently, I did. Like so, and like I said, there's a handful of people like I'm really close with right now. We still give each other grief, but at the same time, I hope Brandon Pierce is watching this because he was my doubles partner of that squad, and I beat him by exactly 300 pins. So hats off to Brandon for being my best friend, being the doubles that day. I hope you can give me grief about that because I'm giving grief to you right now because I beat you by 100 a game.
A couple of things about that. First of all, I got the phone call from one of our staff members at the South Point Bowling Center that night. All he had to do was call me and say, Jacob's doing it again. So I show up to South Point to do some filming, and that's when I'm notified, by the way, he's not in singles. And I think part of my jaw is still on the concourse at South Point. And second of all, we all know from our experiences at South Point that you can get a nice steak and eggs from Coronado Cafe for $7.99. And I want AJ Rice to know that you need to let him know he's on the hook for more than just an $8 steak. You need to make him take you to he needs to pay. I mean, he owes. This isn't a $5 Reno steak.
No, we're going for. We're going for Wagyu like steakhouse. That's what we're going for. The prime cut, like something that you can't get anywhere else. So I hope he's hearing that right now.
I'm thinking like, Gordon Ramsay Hell's Kitchen on the Strip or Gordon Ramsay steak inside the Paris. You're talking Wagyu. You're talking hundreds of dollars here. He owes you. Sorry, AJ. It's true.
Yeah. I'm sure.
Hopefully.
When I shot the 850 or going into the last couple of frames, he was probably sweating, and then he probably had the biggest sign of relief when I decided to play that Magic. So
a lot of people, as word travels, of course, Jacob's shot 300. He's going to shoot 850. By the time word gets around, nobody knows what it says on your entry form there, and it said doubles only. So sigh of relief for AJ. And no doubt, I don't imagine it was much longer after that you were adding up the potential prize money that was lost in that moment. But it makes for a great story, maybe. And
I actually want to add I want to add a little bit to this since everybody was giving me the grief that AJ or that Jacob didn't get in singles. I want to add to the fact that I finished second in singles to AJ. And at the end of the BJ, tally up all the prize fund, I actually made more money than him because AJ shot 835 and he also shot 800 in another set. And he happened so more than likely didn't get into the trios side of action with all the extra prize funds, which I'm pretty sure AJ is regretting that decision as well.
Uh-huh.
Well, this is one of those learning opportunities like we see at the Open Championships, for example, with the 30 clean. Somebody will hit the 30 clean. And they won't have been in it. And for whatever $10, they could have been a few $1,000, $100 of prize money, and that will cover you for the next 13 or 20 years of 30 clean. And then you could get in it for the next 40 years of your career and never hit it again. So maybe
I still get a couple of messages every now and then saying, you need $20 next year. You go to the BJ, Jacob.
So maybe next year you enter again. You do the dual entry, which is a great feature at the BJ, both doubles and singles at the same time with the same scores. So you make sure to get in, and maybe that's that you bowl 620. That's probably how it's going to work out. But certainly a lesson learned and a lesson for the folks at home as well. And looks like Daniel's pulling up some footage from the 2019 USBC Open Championships. Again, you went over there and you bowled very well. 2,100 again for the third time in 4 years. What a performance. Let's talk about that. Daniel, you've got the numbers. Jacob, you've got the memories. So let's have some details.
So actually, I wanted to state the year prior in 2018, I actually broke the record for most consecutive 200s at nationals. I ended up ending that streak out in Syracuse, but finishing off this year in 2019, it was another very successful year. 21-13, I believe, 8th in all events for the year. Another very successful year, and obviously AJ. I was bowling with AJ in this crew this year, and AJ and I were both giving it a run in the last couple of games. I know AJ struggled the last couple, but hats off to Alan. There we go. Because it's Alan when he's not wearing the hat backwards.
That's weird seeing him without a hat. It's so weird.
Yeah, he's Alan when he's not wearing the hat. He's AJ when he's wearing the hat.
I want to ask you, you kind of brushed over this, but you do have the record for the most consecutive games over 200 at the Open Championships, 32 in a row, going from 2014 through, like you said, it ended in Syracuse in 2018. Wow. Like, were you aware of it? I mean, I know there were a couple of games, we've got some video going back where you needed the first shot in the 10th a couple of years to keep that streak going. How aware of it were you, and how much did it mean to you, and how much does it mean to you to have that streak?
Well, actually, like it means a lot. I believe actually tomorrow is the 2-year anniversary of it out in Syracuse. Saving videos and time stream. Obviously, at that moment, actually, I had no idea that Game 2 of Team Event was what broke the record. I believe I needed the first hit in the 10th frame that game too. Ended up shooting 202, 203, and then 215 to finish off the squad. That's when they made the big announcement. Jakob breaks the record for most consecutive 200s. I believe Matt McNeil, who is Open Championships champion, is what we call him. He had the record before me, and for a guy that's a major accomplishment, knowing that he's Mr. Eagle himself, and like you can officially say you beat a legend in a different tournament.
What is the most important thing for a player when they're going to the Open Championships? I'm going to pull up your record here in just a second, but what's the most important thing for a player to focus on as they're preparing to go out to the OC? Is it physical game? Is it mental game? Is it your equipment? Is it surfaces? Where do they need to start?
I wouldn't even necessarily use the word so much surfaces. I think it's just being comfortable with I'm comfortable bowling with the people I bowl with every single year. And obviously it's been a very successful last couple of years. I actually want to see this stat really quick. Let's see. So yeah, Syracuse obviously wasn't the best year for me, but if I remember some stat that was pulled up in the, what was it? So we bowled 9, 18, 26, 36.
Got 54 games.
So 54 games. I think they said I bowled sub 200, I think like 5 or 6 of those games, if I remember correct, or probably 6 or 7, if I remember correctly. And it, obviously first year in Reno, first year bowling nationals, it's like, I'm just happy to be there. And then El Paso kind of kicked off, like, I would say the year that they started being pretty difficult, and bowled very comfortable. Like I said, started bowling with a really big crew. We started getting a big crew going every year, and just felt comfortable bowling with the people that I bowl nationals with.
So you credit your teammates and the people you travel with, and the kind of the environment they create in the pit area. Plays a big part into how well you've bowled and how comfortable it is for you. Not so much, maybe equipment or physical game or some of the stuff up on the lane. It's more the pit area and the camaraderie of it.
Absolutely. Obviously, like, I bowled with the same crew over the 6 years I bowled, and just feeling comfortable bowling with everybody. It's like I'm just kind of playing into it. Surrounding, like, it's like it's going back home in bowling league. Like, when you're bowling with league, you're obviously having a good time. It's it's like going to nationals. Like, you're bowling with people you're comfortable with, and it's just being comfortable in your environment.
I went back and counted 6 games from what I can find under 200 in your 6 years of the Open Championships.
6 games. Whew.
Yeah. Just think about that, everybody. 6 games under 200.
Especially with how difficult they've been. Like, the last, I would say, 5 years, especially starting last year, where you're not exactly, or I believe it started in Syracuse. You don't know what you're bowling on until the conclusion of the Open Championships.
Well, you've certainly proven that Nick Hoagland is going to have to do some work to shut you down. And you mentioned your teammates, and I think that's a good segue as well to the non-individual aspect of our sport. A lot of our ups and downs that we talked about, the Masters, the World Cup, all of those individual events and places where it's really up to you and on you. And we glossed over the Team USA part a little bit. You were a world champion in 2017 in the team event. It had to be an incredibly special moment for you. It went back to the World Championships in 2018 and had some individual struggles, but again, all part of the team. And then we followed up that 2019 Open Championships performance with a trip to Peru for the Pan Am Games. I wore this jacket today just for you. It was a very memorable, a very special experience. That's right now as close as we're going to get to the Olympics. But that was an opportunity for you to share what you do and love with some incredible teammates and some great performances. You were dominant there as well, but it was more than just about Jakob Butturff at that event and at all the Team USA events. Describe that experience and standing on the podium for those events, knowing that you're representing your entire country and sharing that moment with some great folks as well.
It's just like basically when you're out there competing, you don't realize like how important it is to be there. You're bowling for your country, you're bowling for medals. Like basically with Pan American Games, I mean, obviously it's a step in a direction that, you never realize until you're actually there. Nick Pate and I obviously went to represent the guys side. Stephanie Johnson and Shannon O'Keefe represented the women. And, you get there and you're like, wow, I mean, you're basically in a different world. Like you're one of two people representing something that a handful of people would love to be there and do and compete. And obviously we bowled our best to get there. And obviously, Nick and I kicked it off very well in doubles, did very successful. And, it's a very unfortunate situation with what happened. I'm sure a lot of people know, but, winning a gold medal, just any way you could put it, like it's obviously we want to do the best we can to win that. Like we want to do whatever it takes to win. We bowled phenomenal all week. Nick and I obviously did very well when it came to the singles portion. He ended up edging me out for the first match, and he ended up going on winning the gold medal for him. And, taking home a medal in any way possible in a special event like that, how many people in the world can say that?
Now it's been really, just put it in perspective, it's been not even 5 years since this breakout performance at the Open Championships. And all of this has happened. All the things we've talked about have happened since 2016. Can you put that in perspective and just what a phenomenal run it's been? And is it possible even to pick a favorite moment of all of those successes?
Looking back on it, it really is difficult because growing up, it's like I idolize so much about bowling. And growing up, I just wanted to be a professional bowler at 25 years old. And that was an accomplishment I would be proud of. But, I'm sitting here. I just turned 26 just over a month ago, and I've already accomplished like a resume that, a handful of people wish they say they could do. And I think the biggest thing it takes is dedication, practice, like perseverance. Knowing you're going out there and competing, but taking the time to do it. I think that's one thing I have to look back at and saying that, someone who's practiced as much as Jakob, like he deserves it. It doesn't matter how you do it. It's a matter of how much time you put into it.
Now, some of the smartest folks also say that you potentially learn as much from the defeats as you do from the victories. Along with all the success and the wins, we mentioned some of the injuries, some of the things that you need to work on personally to continue going strong. There's been some defeats on TV. There's been some spare miscues on TV, all things to learn from. How do you take those things moving forward to make this run last another 5 or 25 years? So you're doing the same thing on the senior tour someday.
You just got to take a step back and realize that, once you throw that last shot of a tournament, it's done. You have to immediately click and go into a different tournament mindset. It happened to me to kick off in 2019. Obviously, I lost to Bill in to kick off the season in Arlington, missing a 7-pin and a 4-7 that basically cost me the match. but at the same time, I'm sitting at lunch, and it's like I have to look back and think that we start a tournament literally the next day. I can't say going into the next day, and it clicked at me at first, and I finally started to get to feel better. And then that's when I'm at lunch with all the guys thinking we just got to make some kind of joke out of this. Obviously with the bird box meme that I made pretty infamous across majority of the world. Like, like what is it? What's the word terminology? Self-deprecation or something? Like
Yep.
Self-deprecation, that kind of like making a joke about something that, who you are as a person. I think that's what kind of helped me going into the next tournament.
And all those moments, are there any, or is there one that just truly, absolutely haunts you? That the one moment that got away that you wish you could absolutely have back, or have you learned to take those for what they are and move forward?
There's been a couple of moments that kind of haunt, but at the same time, you're always learning. You could be sitting there bowling until you're 72 years old. You're always learning something different. Obviously, I feel like the people that take the time and learn are the ones that learn to execute a lot better down the road.
Right. And now that we're back to it, we're back on the lanes. You are all healed up and ready to go. What are one or two of the things that you really are looking forward to, you'd like to accomplish in the near future or in your career? Just what are some of your biggest goals?
Well, I think one of the quickest goals is finish off the World Series, obviously. I was one of 6 bowlers to make every single cut. And, just winning a title, like, obviously, I had a very successful year last year. This year, it was kind of a slump to start. So I want to be able to go out there and finish off this World Series, defend the Masters, obviously. Like, I was ready to go. I was ready to go out there and defend. And obviously with COVID happening, I wouldn't even necessarily use the word it got taken away from me, but it definitely put a delay on everything.
Now, all the time you spent at home with friends and family potentially, or at least relaxing a little bit, what have you missed the most? Or what are you most looking forward to getting back to the normalcy, besides the bowling part? Of course, we know that's huge, and you've already been doing that. But was there anything missing in your days in your life that you just absolutely are going to be so much looking forward to?
Making bets with all the guys on tour. I think there's just a handful of guys. We just like go in week out, always, just finding one way we can to make a game of, like, on the side is what we call it. Like, handful of times, Josh, Andres and I, we would make a joke around saying, like, whoever has the lowest block has to sleep in the pull-out bed in the hotel room. Obviously, this year, one of my collegiate teammates, Russ Ovia, it was his rookie year. I was rooming with him for pretty much every stop, and we would make a bet on dinner pretty much about every block, or whatever, we could find a way to make a bet about something.
That's definitely got to be a confident young man to want to bet Jakob Butturff for
it wasn't just about
every
bowling.
day. Fair enough.
It wasn't just about bowling.
We'll save that for the Inside the OC After Dark episode, I have a feeling. But certainly we appreciate all the great insight today. Before we wrap up, are we going to see you in 2020 at the Open Championships? Of course, the action kicks off September 12th. It'll run through almost Thanksgiving, November 21st, the last day for team competition. Not too far from where you are, but do you guys have your stuff situated? Are you going to be heading our way?
Unfortunately, the crew that we were going to be going with, a lot of guys that in our crew, have very, very important jobs. And, with all the schedule conflicts and everything, it's just hard to, give a question mark to your boss. But, if anybody out there, not saying I'm a free agent right now, but, if you need a weekend to just have a good time, not even just to bowl competitively, let me know.
All right. Well, we'll get the sub board going for you. We helped Brenda Edwards Padilla find a team last week, and we've done the same for the likes of Jason Belmonte and all the guys. So I have a feeling one or two teams might be interested in picking you up if you make it to Reno. And of course, remember to bring a little extra cash for the dual entry option at the Bowlers Journal as well.
Absolutely. Clever, Matt.
All right, folks. Well, Jacob, we certainly appreciate all of your time today, and everybody for tuning in. Some great questions and comments there in the chat. A great guest and some great stories. And we'll have our next show coming up on Thursday. We're going to talk to some of our champions from our other divisions. Definitely looking forward to that. Some of my favorite guys. It's going to be Stuart Scheck, the 2017 standard doubles champion, first year of standard competition. We get to hear about how that win, what it meant to him and how emotional it was. And then a first-timer in 2017, Dwayne Brasse, took home the classified all events title. What an emotional day. What an awesome story. And he promised me he would try to hold back the tears, but what a story there. Looking forward to hearing his take on it a couple of years later too. I think these shows have been great for seeing really the true spectrum of what the Open Championships is all about and all of our champions. And outside of what we do, the PWBA, of course, the PWBA podcast on Mondays and Wednesdays on Bowl TV, and the Sport of Bowling show on Fridays, as well as Daniel Ferris, Emil Williams Jr., and Curtis Von Kruger with some extra bonus content on Bowl TV only. So if you haven't subscribed, go ahead and get that subscription going to see some of their great shows as well. Folks, we do appreciate a little bit of your time today. Jacob, Daniel as well. Wow, what good stuff. And remember, folks, the dual entry option at the Bowlers Journal, doubles and singles at the same time. Do it. That's the news for now. We'll see you on the lanes.